Hi, this is Jack from BCO Farm. I know it's been a long time since I've done a walkthrough, so I thought it was probably time to give an update. A lot has happened here. It's May 2nd. You can see that things are really starting to take off for the year. Over here my wood chip pile is gone. This is actually all leaves, grass clippings, pine shavings from the chicken coop that I've been collecting, but I haven't been successful getting any more free wood chips in a while, but I'm still trying. Here's one of our fig trees that continues to grow really well in the environment. Now what's interesting here is these peach trees, they have really taken off. These were 2-year-old bare root trees a little over 3 years ago. That peach tree is the one that's been in the ground here for about 7 years. And these two that were put in a little over 3 years ago have just about caught up to it. That's how, they were also bare root. This was a nursery tree, which we all know doesn't tend to do as well over time. Those are some pears in between, but the cool thing is you can see, hopefully you can see that there are quite a few peaches on this one, but all of the younger trees in the swale are also bearing fruit this year. There's a nice little peach. You can tell we like peaches, or they like this, because there's more pears. That's an apple. That's also one that's been in a nursery tree that's been in for about 7 years. But what we're seeing consistently this year is that a lot of the trees have a lot more fruit on it. There's some apples. Now what was interesting this year, we had a really early, I guess a false spring. We had really warm weather in February, and the peach trees were covered in blossoms in February. And then some cold weather came, killed a lot of the early fruits, but fortunately didn't kill all of it. Really probably did some useful thinning for us. Now the apples always flower later. Most of our apple trees, there's another one, have a lot of flowers and now are forming a lot of fruit. The challenge always, and especially this year with a lot more fruit coming, is how to keep the squirrels from eating all of it. There's more pears, peaches, another pear, more peaches. These two on the end are 2 cherry trees. And that's one of our thornless honey locusts that we're trying to get going along the upstream side of the swale. Then beginning over here are the trees that were put in a year later. They don't seem to be doing as well as the ones that were in the swale the year before. Probably because down here there's less sun available. This one's doing okay, a few of them are. But all these trees along here were put in a year earlier and they have much more sun. This is also an apple tree that's been in a while, but it's also covered with, I would estimate, 40 or 50 apples. Another example of what the swale does. This plum tree was a 1-year-old, a very small bare root tree in 2010, 8 years ago. Didn't do anything for years, and then we cleared some things from around it that let more sun in. And just being near the swale, it's done well, but I think it's mostly the sun that helped it. This exact same strain of plum tree, same scenario, put in 2010, a 1-year-old bare root, very small, but being right next to the swale and access to more water, you can see it's done even better. Hopefully in this you can see how much larger that trunk is than that one. These two were in the ground at the same time. These trees have never had fruit on them, but this year they've got plums. And over here is a nursery tree it does real well for us. Produces a lot of plums every year. I think I've yet to eat one because the squirrels are all over it, but my hope is that by having fruit everywhere, the squirrels can't eat it all. And I'll admit, there may be some thinning of the squirrels that happens this year. Over here is the pond. I still get strange looks from people who can't believe I dug this 2,000-gallon pond with a shovel, but hey. So it's slowly evolving. The goldfish are breeding. We're seeing more goldfish in it. I mean, maybe I caught it in the video, but when I walked up, a frog jumped into the pond. When it first did it, it was all clay. The pond itself is clay. It's sealed with some kitty litter, some bentonite clay, but the rest of it's Georgia red clay. So far it stays fairly muddy, which happens to give the fish some good cover because we have started seeing blue herons here. Really large birds. The other day I saw one out here and it was creeping up on the pond like it was gonna surprise the fish, but I scared it off, and when it took off, it looked like the wingspan was about 8 feet. This is a pecan tree that's been in the ground a while, and then down here is the lower swale. And you can see some of the trees that have access to more sun are starting to do okay. They've been in the ground 2 years. I think this is their 3rd spring season. And over here is what started out as 1 or 2 red raspberry plants has turned into a raspberry patch. It spreads out and propagates really well. They don't have bad thorns on them, so I'm fine with letting them spread out. We had quite a good crop last June and they were delicious. So, and I've even started transplanting some of the sprouts into other areas. Because what we found and what I've noticed is that certain plants are attractive to the species around here. For example, blackberries. The deer eat all the leaves off the blackberries. So it's kind of wasting time trying to, unless we keep the deer out, trying to stop them. But I've noticed that the deer don't seem to touch the raspberries. And raspberries taste just about as good as blackberries. So we just throw a lot of stuff out here and we see what sticks. And the blackberries aren't doing well, but the raspberries are sticking. Now we've got some grasses growing in here, which is generally not a good idea to let them take over. I'm trying to slow them down. Around here, it's best time of year to get at stuff like that is in the winter. But I spent over a month in Morocco this winter for my job and unfortunately missed a lot of projects that needed to happen here. So one of the interesting parts about this whole Swale project is seeing how some things evolve on their own. We know that over time, as the trees grow bigger and canopy out, they'll shade out the grasses. The grasses won't do as well. But I still try to get in here. You can see recently I've weed-eated a little bit to try to keep them at bay a bit. Another example is we have a lot of sweet gum trees, which are not very pleasant trees. They drop the little sticky balls and they sprout trees everywhere. And I used to worry about trying to pull every sprout, and then I thought, hey, they're really a dynamic accumulator. Let them grow to a couple feet tall and then chop and drop, and they'll be pulling nutrients to the surface. Now there are a lot of them, but I think I'll be able to control them once they get a little taller. If it's an area where that's all that's there, a weed eater would do a good job of that. Otherwise you cut them by hand if you're trying to save other things. We have a lot of these yellow wildflowers. A couple years ago we seeded the swales with wildflower mix, and these have come back year after year. I'm not actually sure what strain they are, but they attract insects, so we leave them, and they're very pretty. Here's some pear trees. There's an apple tree. Over here is the little area that I experimented with last year for some gardening. I haven't decided if I'm going to use it again this year. And here's some very nice purple flowers. This is, I'm not sure what this is. A friend of mine brought it, transplanted it. And then those are some wildflowers, but very nice. So the swale is doing real well in the pond. When we get a lot of rain, it fills the swale, overflows, runs down here, catches water in this little connecting swale to the pond, fills the pond up, and then when it gets high enough, it runs on down to the lower swale. We've had a fair amount of rain this winter, so the 20,000 gallon cement pond is full. If we have a period of no rain, I just pump some of the water out into the swale to make room, especially when I know there's more rain coming. I want to make room in the pond to catch the additional rain and not waste it. So that's really about it for right now. If you have any questions, please submit them in the YouTube comment section. And until next time, this has been Jack from BCO Farm.